What would happen if everyone cared? Once there was a man named Quinn who lived alone in the woods. He was a plain man, living off only what the woods could provide, and possessed no care for the world's obsession for material gain. He obtained enjoyment from simple things: the wind blowing through the leaves, the sun shining through the trees, and the ripple of the water. People in modern times would call him a barbarian, but Quinn was not concerned with the exorbitant ways of the world. Although Quinn tried his hardest to distance himself from society, he was still greatly influenced by the people outside of the woods he called home. Quinn was only 6 years old. He was in a car crash. His parents had driven their car off the side of a bridge late at night. The car was later found at the bottom of the river. Both of his parents' bodies were recovered, but Quinn's body was never found. They had a funeral for the family, and in time, people went back to their normal lives, eventually forgetting about the horrific accident. At sunrise, Quinn arose from his small wooden shack deep in the forest and started on his morning walk. It was not hard for him to find what he needed in the vast woodland he called home. Clean water, fish, berries, mushrooms, and many small animals to trap were all within an hour's walk. Quinn decided to walk to the other side of the lake close to his shack to gather some raspberries this morning. On his way there, he discovered many of the trees had been chopped down in the area. He rushed to the berry bushes and, to his surprise, found that there was now a neatly manicured green lawn and a picnic site adorning the past location of the bushes. Quinn, being deeply disturbed by the presence of other humans, ran back into the forest. A few months later, Quinn was going to the river a few miles north of his shack when he heard a noise he had not heard in a multitude of years, the sound of cars. He was reminded of the fateful day that marked the beginning of the life he now lived. The thought of his parents and the idea of the life he once lived flooded back into his mind. Quinn took off in the other direction, deciding not to go to the river he usually used as his source of water. There was a tiny winding brook he had once passed that had clear, clean water flowing through it to the southwest. He decided to head down to that creek and get his water from there. When he arrived at the stream, he noticed that an unnatural yellow foam had formed along the edge of the water. Quinn decided that he could deal without refilling his water gourd for a day. As the year went on, Quinn had more trouble finding small animals and berries to eat because of the destruction of the forest. But he was beginning to sense the changes in the air around him. He knew that this was the time of year that mushrooms began to grow abundantly in the forested valleys near his shack. He traveled down into the valley and noticed that many of the large oak trees had been marked with black X's. When Quinn returned to the valley the next day, all of the trees that had been marked were gone. The soil was no longer shaded by the large trees and had started to dry out. Quinn checked back in the forested valley every day, but no mushrooms were able to grow in the dry soil. Yet again, the outside world's choices took away a food source for Quinn. Quinn was now very weak. He had been living in the woods for so long, and it had always provided him with anything he needed. He went to get a drink from the once clean water that he knew would now make him sick. His berry bushes were gone, and he no longer knew of a place to get food. Quinn's adult skeleton was found 40 years after his incident. An excavator operator found his skeleton dispersed on the ground while clearing a wooded area for a new strip mall. Police were shocked to find the skeleton's teeth match the child that supposedly disappeared in a violent car crash that both his parents had died in. Quinn was reburied next to his parents, and the world went on carelessly living their lives, never taking the time to notice what had happened in the world around them.